Imagine waking up feeling like yourself again after a really long rest, ready to face the day.
Yeah.
Only to step outside and realize, well, everything you thought you knew
Yeah.
about where you were was wrong.
Right.
And that something pretty dangerous was lurking, like right under your nose the whole time.
That's exactly the situation our main character finds herself in today.
Yeah.
So we're diving into this really fascinating excerpt from a pasted text. It's labeled Parts Click.
Part 13. Okay.
And it drops us right into Nyanga's experience as she comes out of this cave. And crucially, she seems totally unaware of the danger she was just sharing her nap with.
Right. So our deep dive today is really going to focus on her journey as she leaves this cave, which it seems like she thought was a safe spot.
Apparently, yeah.
And we're going to try and unpack what she experiences, the challenges she faces, all while she's basically in the dark about the perils she just escaped.
It's quite the setup. A journey from what she thought was a sanctuary into, well, a reality she doesn't grasp yet.
So the text opens, you said, with Maigerte regaining her strength after a deep sleep.
Exactly. Which kind of hints that maybe she was vulnerable before, right? And as she starts to leave the cave, she hears this unfamiliar sound.
Okay.
There's a hint of fear, the text says, but she keeps going towards it anyway. What do you make of that opening bit?
Well, the renewed strength, it makes sense. We all need rest to recover.
Sure.
But that unfamiliar sound, that's the first little, warning bell, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It creates this immediate tension for us listening in, even if Snina herself doesn't quite get it yet.
Yeah.
And this bravery.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just naivety, pushing through the fear. It's quite compelling, I think.
And building on that tension, what's really interesting is how quickly we, the audience, find out who else is in there.
Right. We get the inside scoop.
We do. The caves belongs to a large snake, a long-term resident, apparently, who's never had an intruder before.
Wow, never.
Never. The text really emphasizes the snake's surprise at seeing news.
That's actually a really interesting angle.
Yeah.
So while Conrad's waking up completely oblivious, the actual owner of the place is also having this totally unprecedented experience.
Exactly. And not just surprise, there's this weird internal conflict mentioned.
Oh.
Yeah, the text mentions this repetition. I track a whole belly, will not eat, will not eat.
Huh. While it's hissing, the text says, Adron Kalkan.
Right. It's like the snake is sort of arguing with itself, with its own instincts, maybe.
That's fascinating. Could that, I don't know, suggest something more complex than just predator-prey? Like maybe it's confused.
That's a great question. Maybe it's just the routine being broken, or perhaps genuine hesitation because the situation is so unusual. It definitely makes the snake seem less like a simple monster, and it really contrasts sharply with Miley, who still has absolutely no clue who her housemate is.
The dramatic irony is just, yeah, it's thick.
It really is.
Okay, so here's where it gets, really wild. As Zay finally gets out of the cave, she sees what she thinks is a large kite from a tree.
A kite.
Yeah, but we know it's the snake.
Right.
How does she make that mistake? Mistaking a giant snake for a kite. What's going on there?
It's pretty baffling, isn't it? It says so much about her state of mind. Maybe she's still groggy from sleep.
Could it be?
Or maybe she's just completely unfamiliar with snakes this big. You start to wonder about her background, her world. What kind of place has she lived in where a huge predator can look like a harmless toy?
That's a good point. What was her normal?
Exactly. And all this time, the text notes, the snake's roar or hiss maybe gets louder.
So the danger is escalating, very clearly.
Objectively, yes.
Yeah.
But Lionel Tennis still isn't reading the signs correctly.
It's almost painful to witness, that lack of understanding.
Yeah.
And then, boom, the confrontation.
Yeah. As Ipar reaches the mouth of the cave, the snake lunges. It's the moment we've sort of been waiting for, dreading maybe.
The unawareness hitting the reality hard.
But here's the thing, the text really stresses how narrow her escape was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It says because she'd already reached the opening, the snake couldn't get a proper strike in.
So it wasn't her being clever or fast, necessarily?
Not primarily, it seems. It was more about her location, her proximity to the exit, just sheer luck, almost. Makes you think about the role of chance in these things.
Absolutely. Pure chance. And her reaction is instant, right? I would agree.
Like a flash. Yeah, straight up to a tree branch. You can almost feel that adrenaline surge.
Totally. And then she looks back, sees the snake lunging, and the pity drops.
She's craving her words, so it was going to eat her.
That moment of realization must have been chilling.
I'll bet.
And that phrase, "I'm peeing back on that phone," she narrowly escaped. It just hammers home how close it was.
A hair's breadth. Not some heroic victory, just look. So now she's up on the branch. Physically safe for the moment,
but mentally, probably reeling.
Completely reeling. The text says, total disorientation.
That loss of direction feels so real after a shock like that.
And then it uses this phrase,
the lost client has become very despondent.
Despondent, yeah, that captures it. Facing death, then suddenly adrift, alone. It's overwhelming. What does that immediate despair, tell us about her?
Well, I think it suggests that while she's got survival instincts, definitely.
It flew away fast.
Right. But the emotional shock, the displacement, it's left her feeling incredibly vulnerable, lost. It really shows how tied together physical safety and emotional state are, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then her thoughts shift.
Yeah.
Suddenly she's thinking about the Grease King.
The king. Okay, that's a twist. It is. Suddenly it's not just about her own survival. She's worried that the king isn't eating because he's worried about her.
Wow. So even in her own crisis, she's concerned for someone else. That implies a pretty deep connection, right? A sense of responsibility.
Definitely. It suggests a bond, maybe a social structure she belongs to, where she has a role, obligations. She's not just some lone creature.
It adds another layer to her character, makes you wonder about this king and her whole situation before the cave.
It really does. And that feeling of isolation just gets hammered home by the line. She feels very alone today. There's no one here who can be her friend after everything she just went through. That loneliness feels really sharp.
It's brutal to survive something terrifying only to be faced with total isolation.
It's a harsh consequence of being ripped out of her context, you know? Alive, yes, but completely alone in a strange place. It makes her vulnerability feel even worse.
Nature gives her a tiny break, though. She falls asleep on the branch.
Yeah, the text mentions a gentle breeze helps her fall asleep, a deep sleep even. But, you know, it's temporary.
Because reality bites again. Hunger.
Exactly. That basic need just forces its way back in. Survival mode kicks back on.
And her search for food doesn't go great at first.
No, she only finds enough for a few hours, apparently. Which just highlights again how precarious things are for her.
Right. But even then, hungry and lost, she still thinks of the king.
She does. The text is quite clear. I come next to some sauce. She hasn't forgotten anything. Hey! She hasn't forgotten anything! Hey, man, I'm coming heist. Her duty to the king, that's still on her mind.
That's remarkable, actually, that commitment.
It really speaks to her character, I think, the strength of those ties. Despite the fear, the confusion, the hunger, that duty remains central.
But the practical problem is still there. She's lost.
Completely. The text repeats it. She still has no idea where she is. Lost geographically and maybe emotionally, too.
And there's that line about her physical state versus her mental state.
Right. Her body might be recovering a bit, but her mind, still not in a good place.
That rings true. Trauma, uncertainty. Those wounds aren't always visible.
Exactly. That disconnect between the physical and the mental is key here. Survival isn't just about not getting eaten. It's about coping, resilience.
So she thinks things over and then just takes flight again.
Yeah.
But aimlessly.
Yeah. Aimless flight. Just trying to do something, maybe.
And where does that get her?
It leads her somewhere completely different.
The seashore?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Big change of scenery. From a cave to woods, now the sea. Totally new environment. And it introduces something else. Other birds. Lots of them.
Maybe some company, some help.
Well, no, the text specifically says thy garden cost repair. None of them are her own kind.
Oh, so even surrounded by other birds, she's still an outsider.
Exactly. It just reinforces that feeling of isolation, of being out of place. And then evening starts to fall. The other birds, they start heading home.
Which must just twist the knife for a conger pair.
You'd think so. The text says bluntly, today she has no home apiece her. Like a top young bird. So the question of returning home doesn't even arise. The reality is hitting hard.
That's a powerful image. Everyone else going home and she's just stuck.
And faced with the immediate problem. Shelter for the night. Yeah, come on, breathe again, justice, my son, find your pit. She has to find another cave.
But after the last cave, that must feel risky.
It's extremely wind out. The text acknowledges it. And it's in the first graph. The course read it. The core to do. Talking on it could be safe or maybe not.
Back to relying on chant.
Totally. Everything depends on fate now. A stark contrast to how safe she must have felt initially in that first cave.
So this constant uncertainty is just her reality now?
Pretty much. Having barely escaped one hidden danger, she has to gamble again on finding shelter with zero guarantees.
And she still can't eat properly. Goes to sleep hungry.
Yeah. And still thinking about the king, this cycle just keeps going. Physical need, emotional worry, uncertainty.
But then morning comes and something shifts. A decision.
Yes. Very early, she wakes up with a new determination, it seems. You are sitting I have to leave this region, go somewhere not far away.
So she's taking action. Not just reacting anymore.
It feels like it, doesn't it? It's a proactive choice. Instead of just staying put in despair, she's deciding to move on, to seek something different. Maybe driven by hope. Hope of finding safety or finding a way back to the king eventually.
That shows some resilience, finally.
It does. So let's quickly recap that Legmardo wakes up, nearly gets eaten by a snake she didn't know was there, escapes by sheer luck.
Right.
Finds herself totally lost, despondent, worried about this king figure, lands by the sea, feels isolated even among other birds, faces the uncertainty of finding safe shelter.
Yeah.
And despite the hunger and fear, her sense of duty remains, pushing her to decide to leave the seashore and try somewhere else.
It's quite a roller coaster in a short time. And it leaves us with some big questions, doesn't it?
Definitely. Like, what is this relationship with the king? Where is she actually trying to go now? What other dangers are out there?
And what does this whole ordeal tell us about her? Her resilience, her loyalty, her limits.
Exactly. Which kind of brings us to a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
When you find yourself thrown into situations that are unfamiliar, maybe even risky, how do you juggle your own immediate needs, safety, food, shelter, with those longer-term responsibilities, those emotional ties, the things that connect you to others?
It's a tough balance.
It is. It's the balancing act he's caught in right now. And, it's something we all navigate in different ways in our own lives, I think. That tension between self-preservation and obligation.
Definitely something to chew on.